I've always been a night owl, so when my job offered me the late shift, I took it without hesitation. I'd catch the last train home around 2 a.m., and the station near my apartment was always deserted at that hour. It was a small, old station with dim lights flickering over the platform and the constant hum of distant traffic. I liked the quiet, but one night, that quiet turned into something else. It was a chilly October night, and I was waiting for the 2:15 train, scrolling through my phone to kill time. The platform was empty, just me and the occasional rustle of leaves blowing across the tracks. I heard footsteps approaching from the stairwell, slow and deliberate. I glanced up and saw a man in a long coat, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. He stopped a few feet away, staring straight ahead at the tracks, not acknowledging me. I went back to my phone, but I could feel his presence, heavy and unsettling. Minutes passed, and the train was late, unusual for that line. I checked the time, 2:20. The man hadn't moved, hadn't checked his watch or looked around, just stood there, unnaturally still. I cleared my throat, hoping to break the tension, but he didn't react. Then he spoke, his voice low and gravelly. "You're always here, aren't you?" I froze, unsure if he was talking to me. I looked up, and he was staring directly at me, his eyes dark and unblinking. "Every night, same time," he continued. "I've noticed." My skin prickled. I forced a laugh and said, "Yeah, work schedule. You too, huh?" He didn't smile, just kept staring. "I don't work," he said flatly. "I just wait." The air felt thicker, and I shifted uncomfortably, glancing down the tracks for any sign of the train. Nothing. I considered leaving, walking to the next station, but it was too far, and the streets were empty. "Wait for what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He took a step closer, and I could smell the stale scent of cigarettes and something metallic. "For the right moment," he whispered, his eyes locked on mine. "You'll know when it comes." Just then, the train's distant rumble echoed through the station, and I exhaled in relief. The man stepped back, his gaze still fixed on me. As the train pulled in, I hurried to the nearest door, not looking back. I found a seat and glanced out the window. He was still there, watching me, unmoving, as the train pulled away. I never saw him again, and I started taking an earlier train after that. But sometimes, when I'm waiting alone, I swear I hear those slow footsteps behind me, and I wonder if he's still out there, waiting for his moment. Train stations can feel like ghost towns at night, where every shadow seems to move. But it's not just the passengers who can make your skin crawl. Sometimes, it's the station itself that feels alive. I took a job as a night cleaner at the downtown train station to pay for college. It was easy work: sweep the platforms, empty the trash, and keep an eye on things until the morning crew arrived. The station was old, with creaky floors and flickering lights, but I liked the solitude. At least, I did until one night in November. It was around 3 a.m., and I was mopping the main concourse, the only sound my footsteps echoing off the high ceilings. The last train had left hours ago, and the station was locked up tight. I was alone, or so I thought. As I worked, I heard a faint tapping, like metal on metal, coming from the far end of the platform. I figured it was the old pipe settling, but it kept going, steady and rhythmic. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the sound, my shoes squeaking on the wet floor. The tapping grew louder, and as I rounded the corner, it stopped abruptly. I shone the light down the platform. Nothing, just empty benches and shadows. I called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" My voice bounced back, unanswered. I turned to head back, but then I heard it again, this time from the opposite direction, closer. Tap, tap, tap. I spun around, heart racing, and saw a figure standing at the edge of the platform, half hidden in the dark. It was a man, dressed in a tattered coat, his face obscured by a hood. He was tapping a coin against the metal railing, staring straight at me. "You shouldn't be here," I said, trying to sound authoritative. "Station's closed." He didn't move, just kept tapping, the sound drilling into my skull. I took a step back, fumbling for my radio, but it was dead, batteries drained. The man tilted his head, and in a raspy voice, he said, "Neither should you." I bolted, running back to the concourse, my mop clattering to the floor. When I looked back, he was gone, but the tapping continued, now coming from the stairwell leading to the tracks. I didn't stop to investigate. I grabbed my things and waited by the exit until dawn, when the morning crew arrived. They found nothing, no sign of anyone, but I knew what I'd seen. I quit the next day. The station manager said it was probably a homeless guy sneaking in for shelter, but I've never forgotten that voice or the way he looked at me, like he knew something I didn't. Sometimes, I still hear that tapping in my dreams, and I wake up in a cold sweat, wondering if he's still there, waiting in the dark. Some places hold on to their secrets, echoing with the past. But it's not just the living who can haunt you. Sometimes, it's the stories left behind that linger in the air. My friends and I were always hunting for thrills, the kind of reckless adventures that made our early 20s feel alive. When we heard about an abandoned subway platform hidden beneath the city, a relic sealed off since the 70s, we knew we had to explore it. It was a cold Friday night in March, and we met up near downtown, armed with flashlights, a six-pack of cheap beer, and a mix of excitement and nerves. We found the rusted gate behind an old warehouse, the air sharp with the smell of wet pavement and diesel. Prying it open, we slipped into the tunnel, our laughter loud but brittle, trying to drown out the creeping unease. The tunnel was pitch black, our flashlight beams barely cutting through the stale air, thick with dust and the sour bite of rust. Our footsteps echoed off the tiled walls, mingling with the steady drip of water from unseen leaks. "This place is a tomb," Sarah whispered, her voice half joking, but we kept going, following the tracks deeper until we reached the platform. It was crumbling, concrete cracked, walls scrawled with faded graffiti, littered with broken glass and cigarette butts. The silence was heavy, like the city above was holding its breath. We cracked open the beers, the cans hissed sharp in the quiet, and sprawled on the platform, trying to keep things light. "Bet this place is crawling with ghosts," Jake said, grinning, but his eyes flicked to the shadows. I laughed, but the deeper the night went, the harder it was to ignore the stillness, broken only by the drip-drip of water and the occasional skitter of rats. Or something else, in the dark. My skin prickled, the air colder than it should have been, and our jokes started to feel forced, like we were shouting into a void. Restless, I wandered to the platform's edge, shining my flashlight down the tunnel. The beam caught rusted tracks and peeling paint, but then, something else. A figure, standing maybe 40 yards away, motionless, a vague silhouette in the gloom. My stomach dropped. "Guys, come here," I whispered, my voice tight. They shuffled over, flashlights shaking. "What the hell is that?" Sarah hissed, squinting. "Mannequin, maybe, some art thing," Jake said, but he sounded unsure. "Yo, who's there?" I called, louder than I meant. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, unnervingly still. My heart thudded, the air heavier, like it was pressing against my chest. "Let's get closer," I said, trying to sound brave, but Sarah grabbed my arm. "No way, dude. That's creepy," she said. We stood frozen, beams locked on the figure, which seemed to blur at the edges, like it wasn't quite solid. Then a low hum started, deep and mechanical, vibrating through the platform. The tunnel's old lights, caked with grime, flickered on, one by one, casting a sickly yellow glow. The figure was gone, vanished in the light, leaving empty tracks. We stared, breath shallow. "Those lights shouldn't work," Jake muttered, his voice barely audible. "We're leaving," Sarah said, grabbing her bag. We scrambled, cans clattering, and hurried back along the tracks, the hum louder, the lights flickering, shadows twisting on the walls. My flashlight started to dim, batteries weaker than I'd thought, and the tunnel felt tighter, the air colder, smelling sharper of rust and damp. Near the exit, I heard it, a whisper, soft but clear, "Stay." It came from behind, chilling my spine. I spun, flashlight sweeping the dark, but the tunnel was empty. "You hear that?" I asked, voice shaking. Sarah's eyes were wide, Jake nodding, pale. "Go, go," he hissed. We ran, the whisper echoing, "Don't go," until we burst through the gate, gasping into the night air, the city's hum a lifeline. We never went back, and we don't talk about it. The city sealed the entrance soon after, citing structural issues. I tell myself it was a homeless guy hiding, or our minds hyped on beer and darkness. But that whisper knew my name. On quiet nights, I hear it again, faint, pleading, and I lock my doors, hoping it's just a memory, trapped where we left it.